Hello and welcome back to another Rush Duel Links video. Today we're going to talk about the confirmation of Go Rush World coming to Duel Links. This was announced during a trailer shown off at the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship Series 2024, and we got to see some quite interesting stuff. First off, we were generally expecting either Go Rush or Fusion, and we got both, which is kind of huge. So during the trailer, we got to see 3 cards, and then they were also shown on stream as a separate graphic, showing us that the first 3 characters we'll be getting will be Udius, Yuhi, and Yuamu, and we'll obviously be getting these 3 cards, those being 7's Road Paladin, Cyber End Dragon, and the Fusion spell card. So we also saw a few more little updates, but this video specifically is going to be talking about the reveals. So as well as these 3 cards, we did also see the Swordsman of Roadstar, which fuses into the 7's Road Paladin. But this puts us in an interesting spot, because that means now, when we're predicting what's going to be in the next box, we'll be predicting what we're going to get from the Go Rush side of things, as well as what we're going to be getting from the Fusion side of things. And then we have to speculate whether or not we think we're going to get Go Rush Fusions, because a lot of the Go Rush Fusions power creep the 7's Fusions by quite a bit, so it's a little bit awkward to work that out. But let's start off with these 3 cards. So first up, we have the Fusion spell card. I think we've already spoken about this card at length, so we'll go over it quite quickly. The main difference between this and Polymerization is that we can fuse only using face-up monsters from our side of the field. Polymerization can fuse from hand or field or face down on the field, so Fusion is a little bit more restrictive. But there are a lot of cards in the game that will allow you to move Fusion from your graveyard to your hand, or for example mill the top X cards and then find a Fusion among them and put it into your hand. There's a lot more cards that work alongside Fusion. Polymerization is in Rush Duel, but as a legend card, and we don't know if this will be available in Duel Links straight away. The Fusion is going to be our go-to way to fuse monsters. Then we have the 7th Paladin. Again, we have already talked about this card a little bit as well, but this is a magical knight and therefore not a spellcaster and not a warrior. It's made using 7's Road Magician and Swordsman of Roadstar, which is a spellcaster and a warrior. We can send the top card of the deck to the graveyard, and then Fusion monsters have multi-choice effects, so you get to choose one of these 2 effects to activate each turn. So either it gains attack equal to the number of different attributes in both players' graveyards times 400 to the end of this turn, or we get to shuffle a monster from our own graveyard into the deck and draw a card. So that lets us recycle our monsters, which is pretty good. We could also grab a Fusion monster from our graveyard and put that back in the extra deck, as well as drawing a card is always going to be really, really valuable, especially if we have no way to get damage in. Let's say our opponent has 3 set monsters and we just don't have a way to pierce through. It might be beneficial to get the draw instead. So, Swordsman of Roadstar, this is the other fusion material, and again, this is a trend among the 7's fusions, is typically we will use 1 boss monster and then 1 vanilla low-level monster. So this is the Spellcaster vanilla low-level monster, the Swordsman of Roadstar, and we'll just be using this to fuse into our 7's Paladin. So next up, we're going to talk about a fusion that we kind of glossed over in our last video when we were talking about potential fusions coming up. This is Candy Live. The reason we glossed over this is because partially, we even forgot this card existed, and this was Roman's original fusion monster, because she kind of pivots into playing a Candy style deck. I suppose all Psychic decks kind of eventually become Candy decks, but we didn't touch on this one because this didn't use Roman's previous boss monster, that being Prima Gitana, but this is made using Candy and Psychic Upper. It has 2800 attack and is level 9, so pretty good all around. The requirement is that if our opponent has a monster on the field, we can take 2000 damage. That's quite a lot. That is a third of your life points in Duel Links. Then you can make all face-up monsters on the opponent's field lose 3000 attack until the end of this turn. So that basically is going to make all your opponent's monsters have 0 attack unless they've got something like a maximum or a big-ish fusion. So really, really powerful effect with a really, really steep cost. Or we can gain 1000 life points and then special summon a level 7 or higher Psychic type monster from our graveyard. Now notably, Candy Live is an Omega Psychic and not a Psychic monster, so we can't use this effect to chain into another one, but we can use this effect to get back any other level 7 or higher Psychic monster in our graveyard, so we already have to have a boss in there in order to get the special summon, but notably we don't need to have the boss in there to gain the life points. We can just gain the life points because it's a then you can effect. And the last card that was shown off during the trailer was the Cyber End Dragon. Now Cyber End Dragon is pretty cool. It's made using 3 Cyber Dragons, it has piercing, it's 4000 attack. So this is a little bit awkward because Mirror Innovator can quite realistically easily get to 4000 attack. Now 4000 attack and piercing, it doesn't usually do those things at the same time, but it's not impossible. If for example we used Aim Eagle, we can get out a 3400 attack Mirror Innovator, then we shuffle back 1 level 7, we get a 4100 attack piercing Mirror Innovator. But what Cyber End Dragon does that Mirror Innovator doesn't do is it's level 10. That means it's a maximum monster effectively. So there are a ton of cards that just won't even work against this card because of its level, as well as the fact having 4,000 attack is pretty good. A lot of cards will struggle to get over that, just like Yugioh. Now, this card still will die to things like Widespread Ruin, Tribute to the Doomed, Talismanic Seal Array. So it's not infallible, but it's still pretty powerful. Realistically, how often we're going to be able to get 3 Cyber Dragons out to actually fuse this out is going to be up in the air, so we're not really sure. And if we do get access to Cyber Rush Dragon or Cyber Twin Dragon, I would expect those cards to see play over this. But right now, all we know for sure is we're getting the Cyber End. We don't know if we're getting any of the others. We don't know what other Cyber Dragon support cards we're going to be getting. But if you want to see more about the Cyber Dragon support cards we could get, we do have another video talking about the Cyber Dragon specific support cards that could come out. So I recommend going and checking that out. And now we'll talk a little bit about our Go Rush predictions. So I think it goes without saying we're going to be getting Galactica Oblivion. This is Yudhius' ace monster. So one thing you may notice is it is a vanilla monster, but it does have really good stats. 2500 attack, 2500 defense, and level 7 are all absolutely fantastic qualities. The only thing wrong with being level 7 is probably Combustion Crisis, but other than that, level 7 is a great level, especially when we get access to cards like Ship of the Seven Treasures in the future. Being level 7 is going to be a really good thing. Now, why is the new main character's ace a vanilla? That seems a bit backwards considering the other aces in Yuga and Luke so far, and the other ones that we'll see in Go Rush are all effect monsters. The reason is, Light Galaxy as a deck is all built around normal monsters, and being able to do a lot of things with normal monsters. So if you're a normal monster fan, this might be the archetype for you. But one of his other ace cards is Transamu Rhynak, 1600 attack. We have already spoken a little bit about this card in another video, but Transamu Rhynak is a 1600 level 4 non-legend monster, which was a huge deal at the start of Go Rush when this card came out. Which means we're basically seeing a little bit of power creep, and we will now have a new strongest beta. But Transamu Rhynak does actually have some support cards specifically for itself, and one of those is Transamu Jirai. So if you have a face-up monster with 1600 or more attack on your field, send the top card of the deck to the graveyard. This turn, one face-up level 4 light attribute galaxy type monster on your field can make up to 2 attacks on monsters. Now the reason I think this possibly could come out is because every good deck, almost every good deck in the game, basically needs a way to beat set 3 pass. And as is, we're not really sure what Galaxies is going to be, so we're going to kind of spitball a couple of different ideas they could have. Obviously, they could just get a skill that lets them do this, which a lot of other decks do have. But for now, we're going to say maybe they'll get Jirai, because this will allow us to make 2 attacks on monsters. If Jirai itself can clear a monster, then our third monster can get a direct attack in. If Jirai can't clear that monster, then our third monster could clear their last monster, and then Jirai could get in for 1000, and that is a way that we can get damage in through set 3 pass. Another card we might possibly get is Transamu Rika, and this was a card that was released, I believe, in the very first set that Galaxy was in. We can send 1 card from our hand to the graveyard, so pretty steep cost. Choose 1 face-up light attribute galaxy type monster on your field. If it attacks a defense position monster this turn, inflict piercing damage. Also, if we have Transamu Rhynak face-up on our field, we can change the battle position of 1 face-up monster on our opponent's field. So if they have a face-up defense monster, we can get it to attack mode and then get damage in at their life points, which means we get to basically use this to get damage in twice. If not, we can still change an attack mode monster to defense mode, and generally, a lot of the boss monsters in this game have lower defense than they have attack, which means we probably get to clear over it. So Transamu Rika is still a really good card. And then we have Transamu Crayon. So if we have no other monsters on our field, but this is very similar to things like Paku Pakuchu, we can add 1 light attribute galaxy type normal monster from our graveyard to our hand, but this turn we can only attack with galaxy type monsters. So this is really cool, because there are a lot of galaxy type normal monsters. So we could use this to take back our Galactica Oblivion and get a boss monster back to our hand, or we could grab Transamu Rhynak and just have a 1600 beta. So this card is just, in general, really, really good because of how versatile the normal monsters in Galaxy are. And then we have Galactica Amnesia. So this is a bit of a weird card. This card did see a little bit of play when Galaxy first came out. So it's a level 6 monster, which isn't ideal. Only 1600 attack is also not really ideal. But we can place 1 card from our hand on the bottom of our deck, also not ideal. But we can special summon 2 level 6 or lower Galaxy type normal monsters from our graveyard face up to our field, and this turn we can only attack with Galaxy monsters. So Galaxy do get a 1 tribute 2100 attack and a 1 tribute 2000 attack, which means I could actually see us getting some sort of skill to boost up our level 5 and 6 Galaxy monsters, and then make Galactica Amnesia sort of a focal point of the deck. Now, is that going to happen? Maybe. This is very heavy speculation, but there is potential here to do some sort of like additional Galaxy type deck, maybe one of Yudhius' other skills that might not see much play, but I think this would be a good candidate for that sort of thing. Then we have Meteor Charge. This is a spell card that basically allows us to have piercing. So we can choose one face-up Galaxy-type normal monster on our field. If it attacks a defense position monster this turn, inflict piercing damage. So this is Galaxy-only pierce at the moment. But also, if the chosen monster is a normal monster, we can change the battle position of one monster on the opponent's field. So notably, we can change face-down monsters face-up, or face-up attack position monsters to face-up defense position, which means we can use this to get to our opponent's life points and beat set 3 in 2 different ways, which is pretty cool, but also we can use this to change our opponent's boss monster to defense mode and attack over it if its attack is too high. So Meteor Charge, probably quite likely to come out very quickly. I would expect it to either be in the box or maybe be a Yugioh level up reward. And another spell card is Galactica Force. So this is basically Prima Gitana's effect in a spell card. But we can shuffle 3 Galaxy type monsters from our graveyard into the deck, and again, recycling is always quite good. All face up Galaxy type normal monsters on your field gain attack equals to the number of face up normal monsters on the field times 300. So notably, we're gaining attack based on the number of face up normal monsters. That's both our field and our opponent's field. A lot of the time, playing a Galaxy deck, we should be okay to get 3 on our field, giving our guys an extra 900 attack. That's going to be 2700 extra attack on our board, but if our opponent also has some normal monsters, that could get even bigger. And I could see Galactica Force, especially if you combine it with Meteor Charge, potentially being a really, really powerful tool. But the downside is always going to be, it's an extra spell card, and spell trap space in decks right now in Duel Links is very, very tight. And then we have Universe Storm. Not really much to say about this. It is our back row hate for Galaxy, and you'll use this in basically all Galaxy decks, whether they're light or dark. And then we have Strange Rule. So trap cards are always a bit weird because Konami has been a bit funky with traps. They don't really like releasing good trap cards, and we basically see the same 2 or 3 traps used in every single deck in Duel Links. Strange Rule would make sense because this is just a little combat trick, and combat tricks in general in Duel Links aren't that popular because everyone seems to have a skill or an effect that boosts them way over anything a combat trick could actually have any relevance in. So Strange Rule's probably going to come out, and there are a couple of other trap cards that could potentially come out, but we're going to have to wait and see what Konami decide because again, they've been very trap phobic in the past. And here is one of those traps that we don't think is going to come out. This is Vacua Annihilation. So when an opponent's monster declares an attack, wave a face-up level 7 or higher Galaxy-type normal monster, so for the most part, that's going to be Galactica Oblivion, we can destroy attack position monsters on your opponent's field up to the number of face-up Galaxy-type normal monsters on your field. So this is kind of Mirror Force. It's pretty good, and we haven't got Dark Revelation yet, so I doubt we're going to get Vacua Annihilation, but this card will have to come out eventually? And now we're going to talk about Eternal Galactica Oblivion. So we did say at the beginning that we are getting Go Rush World and we're getting fusions. But are we going to combine the two and get Go Rush fusions? Eternal Galactica Oblivion is a really, really powerful card. But the reason this card was so strong was because it had the infrastructure built around it. We had to summon it very, very easily. We had to deal with our opponent's back row by using other kind of Galaxy cards that we had access to. But if this card came out on its own, I still think it would be a really strong card, but it would not be anywhere near as strong as if it had all the rest of the Galaxy support to really make it this like tier 1 meta threat. But this is made using Galactica Oblivion and 2 light attribute Galaxy type monsters. Galaxy fusions, and specifically Light Galaxy, are not often using specific monsters for their fusions. Most of the time in Rush, you will see specific monster plus specific monster equals specific fusion monster. This is one of the rare times where we get to use any 2 light attribute Galaxy type monsters. Now, that is quite a big commitment, right? We have to get out a level 7 monster, so normal summon, tribute for the level 7. Then we have to normal summon 2 more light Galaxy monsters, and then we have to have fusion on top, so that's quite the heavy investment. So the way that we would usually make this is we would use a lot of other cards to kind of give us lots of plussing, or we'd be able to cheat out Galactica Oblivion using something like a Secret Order, and just be able to get this out basically for free, and then finish off our opponent with it by giving it something like piercing. But, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. What does this card do? So 3500 attack is a really big attack stat. We can shuffle 5 Galaxy-type monsters from our graveyard into the deck, send the top 3 cards of our deck to the graveyard, so those could be 3 more Galaxy monsters, depending on how lucky we get. This turn, this card cannot be destroyed by your opponent's trap card effects, so protects against widespread right now, that's pretty much it, but in the future this would be lots of things such as Mirror Force and all the different types of Mirror Force. Then we can make this card gain attack equal to the number of monsters in your graveyard times 300. So let's say we get 10 monsters in the graveyard, and then we get to give this thing an extra 3000 attack. It's now a 6500 attack monster. So this thing can get a little bit out of hand if everything goes right. So Eternal Galactica Oblivion might come out very, very early. And the reason I say that is just, again, without all of the infrastructure, without all of the support cards to really make this card shine, maybe it would be okay. But that's a big maybe. Now we're going to talk about Yui Cards, and this is Jointech Rex. We've already spoken about this card quite a lot, but it is very, very powerful. This is almost certainly going to be Limit 3 when it comes out, and this card is generic, which means if there's a deck that doesn't have a skill that locks you into a specific card type, Jointech Rex could just be used in that deck. It shuffles any monster, so it's not type locked, and being able to pop your opponent's back row is really, really strong. But another one of his boss monsters is Jointech Hero. So this didn't come out until quite deep into Go Rush's lifespan. I would like to see this card come out a lot earlier because I think this card never really had its time to shine, and I think releasing it a lot earlier would give it that time to really show off how good it can be. So 2500 attack, fantastic stat. During the turn that we normal summon this card by tributing a Jointech Ace, we can send the top card of it to the graveyard. This card gains 1500 attack, so it becomes a 4000 attack, which is really good. Then we can add an Earth attribute machine type monster from our graveyard to our hand. Now notably, this doesn't say normal monster or non-effect monster or any levels on it, so we can just add back the Jointech Rex if we want, or another copy of Jointech Hero. But the card that you're intended to get back is going to be the Jointech Ace, which is our 1500 vanilla Earth Machine monster. So if we tribute a Jointech Ace to get Jointech Hero out, we then will already have the Ace in the graveyard to add back to our hand, and it will gain that 1500 extra attack, which is really, really good. Now, Jointech Ace is also a really cool card because it has a fusion. And again, if we're going to see these early Go Rush fusions, this would be my nomination, I suppose, for Yui. This is made using 2 Jointech Aces. It's only level 6, so it doesn't really get any of that built-in protection a lot of the other fusions get, but it has 2600 attack and 2600 defense. And its effect is we can take one level 7 Earth attribute machine type monster from our graveyard and either add it to our hand or special summon it to the field. So being able to cheat out a level 7 Earth attribute machine type monster from our graveyard is really, really cool. Now, if we were to get out, for example, our Jointech Hero, because it wasn't normal summoned by tributing a Jointech Ace, it won't get any of its effects, but we still get a 2500 beta. If we were to summon out Jointech Rex, again, this is only the turn it was normal summoned, so we won't get that effect. And a lot of the Earth machines do have this kind of clause on them, so for the most part we'll just be getting a beta, but there are a few of them that we could summon out and get their effects. And just like Yugioh, who had a Mirror Force type effect, Yui has one as well. This is Jointech Bumper. When an opponent's monster declares a direct attack, again this has to be a direct attack, that's quite specific, we can shuffle 3 machine type normal monsters, so this one's a little bit worse than the others because machines don't really want to be playing a lot of normal monsters, from your graveyard into the deck, destroy up to 3 attack position monsters on your opponent's field, which is pretty good, but again, I think this is going to go in the pile of cards we're probably not going to get. And now we'll talk about Yuamu and her Bluetooth Burst Dragon. So we send top card back to the graveyard, destroy all face-up monsters with 1500 or less attack on the opponent's field. Then this card gains attack equal to the number of monsters destroyed by this effect times 300 until the end of this turn. This card is fine. This card never really saw a ton of play until Lightwave Dragon came out, and that's because Lightwave Dragon kind of sorts out this card's issues, which is this card doesn't really do much if your opponent doesn't have low attack monsters on the field. It doesn't destroy bosses, for example, but Lightwave Dragon fixed those problems. So this card lets us send the top 2 cards of the deck to the graveyard, up to 3 face-up monsters on your opponent's field with 1500 attack until the end of this main phase. But only during the main phase, so we can't use this to attack over monsters, but we can weaken our opponent's monsters. Anything that has 3000 or less attack will now be able to be destroyed by Bluetooth Burst Dragon, which is fantastic. I would not be surprised if one of the first skills we get for Yuamu basically is Lightwave Dragon's effect, a way to reduce 1 or 2 or 3 of your opponent's monsters' attack to be 1500 or less, so that we can use Bluetooth Burst Dragon's effect to pop them, because otherwise Bluetooth Burst Dragon can feel a little bit underwhelming, especially depending on what the meta is like for how aggressive we're getting with like 1500 betas. The next card we're going to talk about is Beta Burn Dragon. This card isn't particularly interesting, but is a 1400 beta, level 4 dragon. During the turn that we normal summon this card and have another face-up dragon on the field, inflict damage to our opponent equal to the number of monsters on their field times 100. This is only ever going to be like 300, but Yuamu's deck is a dragon deck, but it's specifically high-tech dragons, so it's things like Beta Burn Dragon. This is the type of card it would be. There are a decent chunk of these type of cards, but a lot of them I think would be too strong for Duel Links right now, so I thought we'd talk about this one. And another one is SSD Drake. So if your opponent has a monster on the field, we can send 1 spell trap from our hand to the graveyard to special summon 2 level 4 or lower dragon type normal monsters from your graveyard face up to your field in face up defense position. So this is fine. There's nothing super interesting about this card. We do have to send a card from our hand to the graveyard, but we do get to summon 2 cards, so it ends up as a +1. So it's fine. It's nothing super exciting, but it can get us some tribute fodder. Then we have our fusion of choice that we've decided to show off, and this is Bluetooth Enhanced Burst Dragon. This is made using Bluetooth Burst Dragon and Booster Wyvern. 3000 attack, again, fantastic stat. Send one monster from your field to the graveyard to destroy one face-up card on either field. Then, if we send a monster whose original level is 7 or higher to the graveyard to meet this requirement, we can special summon a Bluetooth Burst Dragon from our graveyard. We pop one of our cards, and we get to pop any card on the field. Then, if we did send a really high-level monster to the graveyard for its effect, we get to get back the Bluetooth Burst Dragon that we already know is in the graveyard because we put it there when we fused into this card. So, it's pretty cool. This card does have a fusion card that is specific to it. We're not really going to go into those today because I'm not really sure how likely we are to get these this early, but I thought we would mention it since we mentioned fusion monsters or the other two. And then we want to talk a little bit about some leaks that we've had. So we do know that we're getting Printing Presser and we're getting Fork Hawk kind of soon. I would expect them to be rewards from the Wave Duel Scramble event. But Printing Presser is a card that we've been wanting for a while, but we actually thought we might not get this card until its fusion came out. But with fusion just around the corner, there is a chance that we see the fusion for this coming out soon. So Printing Presser sends the top card of it to the graveyard, your opponent excavates the top 5 cards of the deck, this card gains attack equal to the number of excavated monsters times 100, your opponent places the cards on the bottom of their deck in any order. So this card can only really max out at 28, but 28 is not bad. 23 though is a really bad stat to be during your opponent's turn, so it's not that great. But why is this card so cool? Because it has a bunch of support cards. So first off, this is Scoop Scooter. There's nothing really interesting to say about this, but we need to talk about this so we can get the gist of what all the other cards do. This is also the other half of its fusion, and its fusion monster is Newsflash, the journalistic Juggernaut. So we can send the top card of a deck to the graveyard, your opponent excavates the top 7 cards of their deck, your opponent places the excavated cards on top of their deck in any order, so instead of the bottom, this puts them to the top. Then make all face-up monsters on your opponent's field lose attack equal to the number of excavated monsters times 500 for the end of this turn. So this can reduce your entire opponent's board by anywhere from like 2,000 to 3,500 attack. So this is insane for trying to push for lethal. The only downside is, again, it's not the easiest monster to get out because we do need a high-level monster and a low-level monster and the fusion spell. Then we have to make sure that in the top 7 of our opponent's deck that there's enough monsters. And then we have to hope that our opponent doesn't have any back row to stop us from attacking in. But if all of that does go through, it's a really, really powerful finisher. Now, there are some other support cards for the Printing Presser, such as Reprinter. If we have a face-up level 7 or higher Earth Attribute Machine type monster on the field, which again, we're getting the Jointech archetype, which is all Earth machines, we can special summon a Printing Presser from our graveyard face-up to our field, but this turn the monster special summoned by this effect cannot attack directly. So we can still attack monsters, just can't attack directly, and we do just get a free body, which is pretty cool. Then we have Reporter Raccoon. This is a level 5 monster, which is not ideal. We don't really want a level 5 monster, especially with only 1600 attack. But we can send it face up from our field to the graveyard to special summon a Printing Presser from our graveyard to our field in face up defense position, and then we can add Scoop Scooter or Soul of a Reporter. So Scoop Scooter is the other half of our fusion. So basically we tribute one monster, get this out, tribute this, get both of our fusion materials, now all we need is the fusion spell and we are good to go. But what is Soul of a Reporter? Well, it's another card that lets you get back your Printing Presser. So when an attack position monster on your field is destroyed by an opponent's attack or their card effect, we can special summon either a Printing Presser or Scoop Scooter from our graveyard face up to our field. So there's just so many ways to just keep bringing back Printing Presser again and again and again, and that's why it's such an interesting like mini archetype. One thing I will say is, Konami has really been reluctant to give us any of the trap cards that revive monsters. We still don't have Disco Ball to bring back the Dinkitos, we still don't have the Cuckoo Clock to bring back Night Vision, so they might not want to give us all of these cards just yet, but they have to give us these cards at some point, so why not with Printing Presser, right? And then the last card is Fork Hawk. This is the other card that we know that we're getting. If you have 3 face-up machine-type monsters on your field, we can send this card from the field to the graveyard to change one face-down monster on your opponent's field to face-up attack position. So this is fine. We can use this to get damage in through set 3 pass. Realistically, if we had this card right now, I would probably put this in my current Cyber Dragon list. But once we get Twin or End, maybe we won't have room for it. And obviously, if you're playing Mirror Innovator, you won't really have a need for this card. But it's pretty cool. 900 defense is nice. It's better than having a really low defense stat and getting pierced over with Innovator for a ton of damage. And it can be quite useful. So that was us kind of predicting what we think might come out with Go Rush World. This video was actually quite difficult to make just because there are so many possibilities between both Fusion and Go Rush and the possibility of Go Rush Fusions which does make it next to impossible to actually predict what we think we're going to get, but I think we've done an okay job here of picking out the ones that I think are most likely to come out, as well as showing off some that we don't think are going to come out, even though they were released very, very early on in Go Rush's lifespan. So, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.